though presidential candidates are no longer shaking hands and kissing babies, the race for the White House hasn't stopped. Trump campaign is now reaching voters online.
The campaign, like its leader, President Trump, has 1 year, and that is forward.
Hey, everybody.
Buenas noches.
Hello and welcome.
Hi, everyone. We have the best data in the country. We have the best infrastructure laid out. And so now we get to capitalize on that data, on this infrastructure, to take our events online to the American public.
You might not see anyone going door to door. Those same volunteers are now making campaign calls from home.
While President Trump is focused on the health and safety of the American people, we here at the campaign are committed to defeating the Democrats, and how all of you at home can help us and join in this fight.
Its online campaign reached more than 1 million viewers.
It really is new age campaigning.
Just let's realize how good Donald Trump's political operation is.
The Trump Organization has a well-documented, robust online infrastructure. You know, what they call their Trump Army.
Tonight, I am honored to launch Catholics for Trump Coalition.
And welcome to our very first Black Voices for Trump online broadcast.
How can women stay engaged and informed?
I could not feel more proud about this country.
President Trump has done about everything that you can do.
Of Biden's record on notable job-killing trade deals.
I'm supporting NAFTA.
We're so fortunate to have a wartime president to lead us through this global challenge.
And we're going to get through it.
And we are going to keep America great.
Hello and welcome to another edition of Team Trump Online's War Room Weekly, where we take a closer look at President Trump's fantastic record of achievement on behalf of the American people and contrast that with Joe Biden's dismal record and his terrible ideas for the future. I'm Tim Murtaugh, the communications director for President Trump's re-election campaign, and I am joined today by two fantastic guests. First, senior advisor to the Trump campaign, Katrina Pearson. Katrina, good to see you.
Great to be here, Tim.
And former 2016 Trump campaign manager, Corey Lewandowski. Corey, glad you could join us.
Thanks for having me, Tim.
Sure. This past week on Wednesday, it was April 15th, which under normal circumstances would have been tax day. Tax day has been put off by the Trump administration to July 15th because of the coronavirus outbreak that the United States and the entire world are dealing with. And of course, the economy, the American economy under President Trump's leadership was going along at a historic rate. No one alive had ever seen an economy so strong until it was artificially interrupted by the coronavirus. And what does Joe Biden have to say about that? Well, since we were talking about taxes and tax day, he still thinks that the best idea is to raise taxes. Let's hear from Sleepy Joe.
You know, people say, well, Joe, how are you going to do all this? Well, guess what? First thing I do is going to repeal this Trump tax cut. Oh, not a joke.
So what that means is a tax increase for most Americans. I'll start with you, Corey. On what planet is it a good idea to raise taxes when the economy has taken such a hit from an outside force like we have?
Well, Tim, clearly Joe Biden has lost touch with reality. Anybody who thinks that repealing the Trump tax cuts is going to stimulate the economy is living in the fantasy world. Look at what this president's been able to do for the small businesses. The deregulation environment, coupled with the tax cuts that this president has pushed through, made the United States the envy of the world when it came to our economy prior to this COVID-19 interruption. He will bring it back. But this notion that we're going to repeal the president's tax cuts and that's going to help create jobs in this country is a complete fallacy from Joe Biden.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. It also shows that he really has no idea of what the role of government is in a situation like this. If his first answer is to raise taxes because he thinks that the federal government knows better what to do with the money than the people themselves, the ones who earned it. Katrina, how in the world could we entrust power to a guy like Joe Biden if that's his idea?
Well, we can't entrust power to any Democrat, never mind those tangible results after the Trump tax cuts.
Businesses were hiring, wages were rising, people were buying homes again. But who needs the American dream when you can have Democrats tell you how much better off you'll feel if you have less, do less, and be less? But of course, the left has this do as I say, not as I do form of governance as they continue to dole out tax dollars to enrich themselves and their friends. But that's why Americans are confident that President Trump is the only choice to bring our economy back, because yeah, he built that. So he's already proven that he was the right choice in the beginning to lead our country at this time. So the choice could be not more clear when you have the old establishment way of Trump first and America last, who would disrupt our economy even further when we can have a president who's already salvaged a weak economy and can continue to build with President Trump.
That's exactly right. President Trump took the dismal Obama-Biden economy and built it up to the greatest economy in the world, the best that anyone alive had ever seen. And now that it's been artificially interrupted, it's obvious that he is the one to restore us to that position again. But we're not. I think maybe most people, when they think about tax increases, they likely think that we're just talking about income taxes. But that is not the case. Joe Biden wants to raise taxes of all kinds. And you don't have to take our word for it. You can just hear it straight from him. Here we go. Here's Joe Biden again.
Command was bold.
Would you bring back the individual mandate?
Pardon me?
Would you bring back the individual mandate?
Yes, I bring back the individual mandate.
And that's why I'm going to double the capital gains rate to 40%, what they should be paying.
My positions are a hell of a lot closer to Elizabeth Warren and Bernie Sanders on some of the economic positions.
So there you have it. We've said over and over again that there were no moderates in the Democrat primaries, and there's Joe Biden proving it with his own words. He's closer on economic issues to Bernie Sanders and Elizabeth Warren to anything else, talking about bringing back the disastrous individual mandate of Obamacare and raising taxes on people of all kinds. And when we're facing an economy that has taken a hit from the coronavirus outbreak that is again sweeping the world, and the United States is wrapped up in that, this is no time. Not that there's ever a good time, but this is the worst possible time to be raising taxes on people across the board, and also again imposing the extreme regulations and hamstrings of Obamacare. Katrina, how can Biden actually think this is good policy?
I'm not so sure that Biden thinks it's good policy, as he's just parroting what he thinks to say to gain power. And the bottom line is Americans can't afford to let any Democrat anywhere near obtaining more power. Taxes are what sparked the revolution. Think about this. We are so excited to give the government more of our hard-earned money, said no middle-class family ever. So you have to wonder, where does this stuff come from? Oh, but wait. They have an entire voting bloc that doesn't pay taxes. And for those who do, Tim, they just lie. We can all remember when the Obama-Biden administration told the American public that the Obamacare mandate was not a tax, at least when they voted on it. But then, surprise America, Obama-Biden, with the help of Pelosi and Schumer, forced the individual mandate tax on every citizen. But there is a reason that you don't see that tax today, and that's because President Trump eliminated it. There's a reason why you don't see those astronomical, unaffordable health insurance premiums that you had under Obama-Biden today, because President Trump took decisive action by expanding associated health plans that allowed people to purchase insurance outside of the exchange, making premiums more affordable. But I think what's most egregious about this Obamacare tax, Tim, is that Joe Biden and every candidate in the Democrat field supported taxing Americans for not having insurance, but unanimously support and they're in favor of providing taxpayer-funded health care for illegal immigrants. That's today's unaffordable Democrat Party.
It really is astounding. It doesn't matter what the policy area is for Joe Biden and the Democrats. Their first resort is always to try to get into the pocketbooks and into the wallets of hardworking American taxpayers. Corey, this won't stand as we head towards the general election in November. It's very important that voters understand that Joe Biden is after people's money.
Tim, you have to remember, if you're a hardworking American family and you do everything the right way, it is the president's notion that you should be able to control your money and spend it the way you want to. But the Democrats have said, if you're in this country illegally, first, we're going to give you free health care. which hardworking Americans don't get. Then we're going to give you free college education, which hardworking Americans don't get. It's two very different sets of rules. And the American people are going to have a choice this election in November. They're going to have the opportunity to return a president to the White House who signed the front of paychecks because he's a job creator, because he has stimulated the economy in the private sector before coming to the public, or they can support Joe Biden, who for 50 years has lived off of his government salary, has taken money from the hardworking Americans for their pet projects. Just look at the last stimulus bill, Tim. We saw the Democrats fund that with all kinds of money that did nothing to help the COVID-19 victims and solve the problem there. We saw $30 million go to the Kennedy Center, only to days later have the Kennedy Center fire/furlough/layoff the very people who were working there because they didn't have enough federal funds. That's not what's supposed to happen. The American people sent Donald Trump to Washington to stop this that's taken place for the last 5 decades, and they're going to resend him back there because it's not fair to give illegal immigrants free healthcare and free college education when Americans have to pay for it.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And I think we all can all remember the words of Rahm Emanuel when he was in the Obama White House saying that never let a good crisis go to waste. And I think we've seen Joe Biden exercise that philosophy exactly because he has said that if there is further rounds of relief packages being passed through Congress, he thinks this is a great opportunity to try to get the Green New Deal passed into law under the guise of having it be somehow responsive to the coronavirus relief. I don't understand how he thinks that driving up people's energy bills and killing 10 million jobs associated with our energy industries is a good idea for an economy that's taken a whack from the coronavirus. But as you both point out very rightfully, that we have now, thanks to the election of 2016 and your hard work, Katrina, and yours as well, Corey, we have a president of the United States who knows that it's more important that people be able to make their own decisions with the money they earn than to turn it all over to the government and have liberals and bureaucrats in Washington decide how to spend it. Let's hear from the great president of the United States.
And just as I promised the American people from this podium 11 months ago, we enacted the biggest tax cuts and reforms in American history. Our massive tax cuts provide tremendous relief for the middle class and small business.
So as we can see, it was through President Trump's leadership that America and our economy reached such unprecedented heights in the first place before it was artificially interrupted by the coronavirus. And he is clearly the leader to get to restore us to that position once again. Corey, President Trump makes an extremely strong case to anybody who works for a living and pays taxes and cares about where that money goes. Isn't that so?
Well, Tim, you have to remember this president almost single-handedly got that tax cut done for the American working people. There was some hesitation by the Republicans in Congress when Donald Trump first came in. And Donald Trump said, I'm going to fulfill the pledge I made in the 2016 campaign, and we're going to cut taxes on the middle class, on the hardworking Americans, and we're going to deregulate the government so that small businesses can have long-term planning capabilities, and they're going to have the opportunity through the tax code to reinvest and create more jobs. And what that did systematically was it allowed more people working before this corona interruption in our country than ever in our nation's history. Whether you're African American, Hispanic American, Asian American, female, male, white, green, blue, purple, everybody who wanted a job was working because of the policies of this president, because of his deregulation requirements to the federal government, and because of the tax cuts that he pushed forward. That is what stimulated the economy, and he will do it again when this corona pandemic has been brought under control.
Yeah, it's just obvious to anyone who's been paying attention for the last 3+ years that President Trump understands that government does have a role in creating economic conditions. It can create the situation where private enterprise and small businesses can do what they do, and that's create jobs by keeping taxes low, by keeping the regulatory burden low. And generally speaking, as a good conservative and a man with decades of experience in the private sector and being successful in business, knows that very often the best thing government can do is just get out of the way. And that's what Joe Biden and the Democrats just don't understand. They always want to get into your pocketbook and have government take over every single decision that you make in your daily lives. Katrina, there could not be any more stark a choice in November.
Oh, absolutely, Tim. And Corey is right. These are promises made and promises kept. by President Trump. And there will probably never be another as intense and exciting, transformative, and inspiring primary like the 2016 insurgent campaign of Donald Trump in our lifetime. Corey and I spent many hours in green rooms with those naysayers, Republicans and Democrats, who were convinced that Mr. Trump, the candidate, couldn't deliver on the promises that he was making to the American people. Promises that the career politicians like Joe Biden and most of his critics today never had any intention on keeping. So this November, the choice is clear. You can have promises kept with decisive action by putting Americans first with President Trump, or you can have Joe Biden, an all talk and no action career politician who is beholden to China, who takes pride in leading from behind and wants to fight to enrich the lives of illegal immigrants and puts American families last. Voters know that President Trump delivers.
Yeah, promises made, promises kept is something that we hear from the president an awful lot, and it has the benefit of actually being true. A lot of politicians say that kind of stuff, but President Trump has the record to back it up. And you mentioned how these promises were made and kept on behalf of the American people. Let's hear from some actual Americans who benefited from these tax cuts from the president. And some of them are job creators and others are employees, knowing that they themselves are benefiting as well. Here are some everyday Americans.
CEO Lou Kennedy is hiring a lot.
From where you sit, how's the economy right now? We're loving it.
Kennedy credits the Trump tax cuts and deregulation for her company's growth.
January of 2018, we had roughly 425 employees. We are now managing and paying roughly 2,000 employees.
I believe that the economy is on a strong growth path, and in particular in our businesses, car businesses is growing. We're about the 21st largest car dealership group in the country. People are still buying cars as interest rates are favorable. Hotels seem to be coming back. Business travelers are going back on airplanes and traveling and staying in hotels. That works for us. And there's still capital out there to raise in the private equity field. And so when you put all of that together, and particularly from my vantage point of the focus on urban markets and African-American community, when you got about, African-Americans are down around 4 or 5, something like that, that's a pretty good testament to the fact that there are a lot of jobs out there looking for people who are traditionally underemployed. And that only comes when the economy is growing.
A lot of work for us. We deliver the concrete, and it's the first time in 10 years that it's booming again. And I'm just so scared that if one of them was to get in, all that's just going to be ripped right out from under us. It's the first time we're moving forward to a future, putting, upgrading our equipment. And
you talked about your shops bought four to six new trucks recently.
4 last year with the tax cuts from President Trump, 4 brand new 2018 mixers. We were driving 1999s before that and older. And this year we were able to purchase 2 more brand new cement mixers.
Interesting.
What policies do you like?
I like his the way he works with the economy and how he produces jobs, keeps his taxes low for the middle class, which is what my family is.
So there you see some testimony from some real Americans. And the one that I think was most interesting there illustrates just exactly how strong President Trump had the economy going, is that people are not only enjoying the tax cuts for themselves, but you can see that gentleman was talking about how his employer was buying new equipment. And here's the thing. Somebody has to build that equipment that people are buying. And that means creation of jobs, even a second step down the line. So again, these are testimonies from how strong the economy was before it was interrupted by the coronavirus. President Trump and those policies are definitely the direction that we have to stay on, because he built the economy up to unprecedented heights, and President Trump is the one to do that again. Corey, there can be no question.
Tim, you have to remember when Barack Obama and Joe Biden were running the government, they told the American people it would take a magic wand to bring back our manufacturing jobs, that these jobs have been shipped overseas, primarily to China, in favor of cheaper labor. And what this president said was, we're the greatest country in the world and we can compete with anybody, but we need a level playing field. And he's used the power of the tariff and the power of his position to bring those manufacturing jobs back. We've seen an economic boom in states like Ohio, Michigan, Wisconsin, where manufacturing is coming back here, where we are no longer reliant on foreign countries for our products. And right now, as we deal with this pandemic, we should understand as the American people, we can never rely on another country to provide the things that we need to take care of our own people, whether it's personal protective equipment, which by and large have been shipped to China, or other necessary tools. This president has brought those jobs back, which means manufacturing is back here, which means are reliant on America first. Not America alone, but America first. And he's the man who did that by his sheer leadership in the Oval Office.
Absolutely. America first is the thought that the president wakes up with every single day. Every decision he makes is geared toward doing what is best for the American people. And definitely that naturally includes tax policy, keeping taxes low for the American people and the people who create jobs in this country. Katrina, final word to you.
You know, I think it's amazing when you hear what everyone was saying in the clips that you just showed, Tim, and it's a little bit disturbing that the Democrat Party, isn't even hiding it anymore. They want to restore the status quo. They want people to not pay attention so they continue to take advantage of their tax dollars to build their own little kingdoms. But any American paying half attention can see the disgust and dismissive nature that the Democrats have for the average American, the small business owner, and for those who just don't believe into the destructive and socialist and even communist ideology that has poisoned the collective on the left. Individual rights and personal accountability are under assault. And I think that the simple fact that Joe Biden would have continued to allow flights in from Wuhan, China, into the United States would have crippled our economy even worse. And it's that type of political correctness and, not wanting to identify where the virus was even coming from. And it's painful to the American people to know that we actually have people who want to be leaders of our country, who have no intention on prioritizing our country. And the Democrat Party as a whole continue to parrot the same political correctness and race-baiting nonsense. And it's that kind of PC craziness and leading from behind that gets Americans killed, and most Americans recognize this now.
Yeah, I think it's obvious that the Democrat establishment got the candidate that they wanted when Joe Biden became the apparent nominee. And that leaves President Trump as quite the polar opposite. He is still the disruptor. He's, that Washington, D.C., the intelligentsia in Washington still don't know what to make of the guy. He has turned the town upside down, and that's exactly what voters still want. And I would point out that there's a significant number of Bernie Sanders supporters who liked Bernie Sanders' populist message and his outsider message. And there is no reason in the world that they can't find a new home with President Trump, because he has a lot of those same approaches, a very populist message and somebody who is a disruptor and will turn Washington upside its head. So I very much appreciate you both coming with us. Katrina Pearson, senior advisor to the Trump campaign. Thank you for joining us.
Thanks, Tim.
And Corey Lewandowski, former 2016 Trump campaign manager. Corey, thank you for your time as well.
My pleasure. Thank you.
Well, join us again next time on Team Trump Online's War Room, where we'll go through the fantastic record of President Donald J. Trump and the terrible failed record of Joe Biden and his dismal backward-thinking ideas for the future. To get involved, please remember to text Trump to 88022 and also visit our great website, armyfortrump.com. That's Army, spell it out, F-O-R, Trump.com, to get involved. Lots of great tools on there for volunteers. Until next time, I'm Tim Murtaugh with the Trump campaign. Have a good night.
Ready to go?
This is a crisis.
This is no time for Donald Trump's record of hysterical xenophobia.
Biden's son inked $1 billion deal with a subsidiary of the Bank of China.
China is going to eat our lunch? Come on, man. They're not bad folks.
Since the outbreak, the Communist Party has been mobilizing overseas organizations to buy local supplies and send them to China.
It is in our self-interest that China continue to prosper. What a beautiful history we wrote together. Banning all travel will not stop it.
The president is right. The travel restriction on China, as every public health official we've talked to said, bought the country time.
That was a very smart move right there.
Hysterical xenophobia. Xenophobia. I complimented him on dealing with China. I'm not going nuts.